Hi to everyone, my name is Nico. I am from Italy, from the postgraduate Erasmus program from Italy here at the University of Burgos. I want to introduce you with the project, a comparative analysis of the classical and virtual restoration process in a set of visigothic skull. How 3D scanning is reinventing paleoanthropology. The development of the 3D modeling and the virtual world permit to grow a virtual research in a different area, such as an anthropology with different objectives and different results. So, of course, this technology can facilitate the monitoring of the conservation of the material, and the aim of this work was to use a 3D technology to reconstruct a remodeling a skeletal remain. The sample examined was to a 5 Hispano-Visigoth individuals aged from 5th and 8th century, and to be precise, there are 3 adult individuals between 35 and 40 years, 1 subadult individual 12 and 30 years from León, and 1 infant individual aged 1.5 and 2 years from Matallana. As with the first step was to a 3D scan of every bone fragment with an Einscan Pro of structural light, and this principle of the structural light 3D scanner consists of projecting a no pattern on the object, and this pattern, the deformation of the skin, was acquired through a camera, and a 3D coordinate was acquired. The second step was to mesh a virtual with a Meshlab software. The third step was a 3D slicer software when we reconstruct a virtual scan. So the second phase was the manual reconstruction, because the situation that arises fossil and human remain of modern human is not usually really comes out of the ground in one piece, but you can see meat of several pieces. So the first step was to remove an incrustation of every fragment with the special tools, and before we can made a real reconstruction of every fragment and rebuild of the shape of every fragment. So after this step, the real reconstruction has been made with the parallel B72, and after the real reconstruction, some of the fragments they are not could be placed because don't have a contact was too small, or the edges of this part are lost. So the virtual reconstruction was so important to rebuild and reconstruction this fragment. We have 5 cases of this work. The first case was in the individual E77, and for each and every one of the individual we made a diagram of color. We identify with a color, a blue color, a very good state, a red color, a good state, and yellow, a bad state of conservation. So after this diagram, for this case, we remove a deformation with a 3D laser program. The second case was the individual E99. With this case, a diagram of color has been made, and the deformation has been removed with a 3D laser program, because the deformation is you can see in the zygomatic area, and the deformation has been removed with calculating the regional position and by overlapping the same part and another individual of the same age and the same sex, after calculating the possible error of the individual morphology. The third case was the individual E68, had an important deformation of this case that we presented after the manual reconstruction, and this deformation after the manual reconstruction has been removed after with the 3D slicer program, and a video has been made to see all the virtual reconstruction of this sample. The fourth case was the individual E10. In this case, this individual is fragmenting 70 fragments, and the manual reconstruction was the most important in this phase, because we rebuilt the reconstruction, the anatomical part of the bones, and after we scanned this bone rebuilt. So for this case, we have a most important deformation. The deformation has been removed with a 3D slicer program, and a video was made for see the deformation and the reconstruction of the skeletal of the skull. The fourth case was the infantile individual from Matayana. In this case, the manual reconstruction is not carried out because the individual is present fontanelle and open suture, so the manual reconstruction is not possible to make. And the most important phase in this, for this case is the virtual reconstruction. So the first step was to assign the age of the individual with a dentition, with a set of a measure of the teeth with age 1.5 and 2 years from the method of University in 1993, and after we assign the age of the individual, we assign the development of the singular part of the skull was made. We follow for the virtual reconstruction in this case to the protocol of the Subalayuk 2 and Devil Tower Child, and after this protocol has been achieved, we start with a mirror of the parietal, right parietal, to recreate the parietal is lost. So to restore the bilateral symmetry with a set of data, and it is possible to mirror the better preserved side to other side. After this, we place the occipital bones, and we start to put the sphenoid part with temporal bones. We use a measurement of the original position of these bones with a set of landmarks, mathematical equation to put the original position of these bones. After this, we put the occipital base with the same landmarks and create a mirror of these bones. So at the final of these all steps, we create a video of this skull, of the reconstruction. We can see all the reconstruction and all the steps to recreate the skull on the virtual reconstruction with all the landmarks and the original position of the every bones. So, part of the discussion, in this case, we can outline the advantages and disadvantages of the manual and virtual reconstruction, but for the manual one, we can talk about some disadvantages. There are, for example, the fragment can be damaged during the reconstruction and lose some of the original part, and at the same time the glue can damage the bone tissue. The position and the fixation of the fragment create difficulties because some of the fragment cannot be attacked from each other, and the isolated fragment cannot be part of the restoration set. But for the virtual reconstruction, we talk about advantages. There are the preservation of the fragments, in this case, the high replication of the protocol in several times, and the isolated fragment is most important because this plays on the anatomical space without need to be stabilized. And the most important was the elimination, the deformation, in this case with the virtual reconstruction. A 3D model are easy to share with all the researchers because in order to have an exchange of view. For the future researcher, in this case, we can talk about a new positivity of the new study in a subadult individual with the 3D reconstruction that can be used with infantile individual. So the conservation and dissemination of the materials, in this case, for the future without to need to damage the original fragments. And the data exchange between researchers that are most important. I would like to thank you, the Human Evolution Laboratory of University of Burgos, the project of the University of Burgos, and the Erasmus program traineeship of University of Florence, and the team of archaeologists.